churches. Joseph, you got on mute, man. What's up?
Yeah, can you hear me?
What's up?
Okay, so Gavin Ortlund dropped a small video today where he was just kind of talking while he was outside, and he was mentioning this point, and I kind of agree with him. Maybe you can enlighten me. The claim that a lot of Protestants are making is that only recently have Eastern Orthodox Christians started saying things like, yeah, we know the church is the exclusive ark, but that doesn't mean God can't save people outside in like a non-normative means. And he's saying that throughout history, the church is very clear that they are basically saying that your eschatological position is anathema if you're not living within the church. So what do you have to say about that?
No, that's fully in line with what we're saying, right? So in other words, if you persevere into the end outside of the mystical body, you are outside of the ark. But I mean, Paul himself said, who are we to judge those without? So he's confusing us judging a person's eternal destiny with judging the public confession of the heterodox group that they're in, right? So for example, the anathemas of the Seventh Ecumenical Council about icons, those aren't directed directly at your Baptist grandmother. So in the Orthodox conception, this is what he's missing, what he's not understanding, is that heresy is not merely being ignorant. To whom much is given, much is required. The patristic definition of what a heretic or a schismatic is to obstinately and knowingly oppose the truth. Now, you can have a sin of ignorance where you willfully are ignorant, and you still have to give an account for that. But merely being ignorant of a thing is not the same thing in terms of the culpability for obstinately opposing the positions. So James White is a heretic. Why? Because he has obstinately opposed the Orthodox Catholic position for decades. Gavin Ortlund is a heretic because he obstinately, knowingly opposes and lies about the things that are presented to him to recast it to prove his butt buddy church, which he's actually in a butt buddy church, by the way. They just had a giant scandal. So that's why we don't immediately just say, oh, if you've not been baptized into the Orthodox Church, you're automatically damned. And again, remember, these people think of, quote, salvation as a one-time act where you pray the sinner's prayer or you confess Jesus with your mouth. That's not what salvation is in the Orthodox conception. So we have a different conception of salvation. And thus, for us to say that we can warn you that you're outside of the ark, it still doesn't give us the position or the place to say, I know your eternal destiny, because I don't know your eternal destiny. But if you're not inside the ark, you will suffer shipwreck, right? And there are examples where there have been people who, Cornelius has his prayer heard before he's in the church. So God can hear a person's prayer. There are graces outside of the church, or else no one would ever come to the church. You can't come to the church without grace, right? So the prayers for an unbaptized infant, for example, are different than the prayers for those inside the church. And we pray for our dead relatives, even those that have died outside the church. Why would we do that there'd be no point of that if they're automatically damned? But we don't know that. So people are confusing the humble position of not knowing things and admitting that we don't know those things because we're not told those things in Orthodoxy versus where you have strong statements in the church fathers about obstinate heretics, right? Your grandmother might not be an obstinate heretic. And that's why we are rougher and more aggressive with obstinate heretics as the church fathers were. They were much more obstinate and much more aggressive with people like Arius or Nestorius, who were massive heresy arcs. That's why Ruslan is much worse than a Baptist grandmother. Ruslan is out here literally directing people to get circumcised at these fake ass churches. And then when people apostatize, he laughs about it. He doesn't give a shit. He's a total phony, obviously.